Where
Sorry, I actually just thought I could be meditating during sex. I could just be thinking, don't come. Don't come. She'll be like, what are you doing? Just meditating. Yeah.
Easy.
I think that's how I'm going to do it. I'm not sure yet. I'll see how it goes.
Right.
But we'll just play it by ear.
Do what you got to do.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Great Unloading. My name is Dennis, and I am your host for this podcast. So make sure you subscribe, you follow us on Instagram, you follow us on YouTube so you can watch all the clips. Hit that bell button as well so you get post notifications. Really appreciate it. So let's get into it. I'm here with Tom Kliese. I've known this guy for quite a while.
Too long.
We went to school together, high school, and you were in the grade below me?
Yeah, grade below.
Yeah,
Yep.
So I graduated 2012, you would have
2013,
yeah. Mm-hmm. So basically how we sort of became friends and stuff was we were both into rugby, I think, and were we both doing that
Rugby Academy?
The Rugby Academy,
yeah. That's when we met.
Yeah, got it. So there was this Rugby Academy thing, and we were doing it like during the summertime, like off season, so that we could prepare ourselves for the season because we wanted to make the A team, and we also wanted to make the first 15 eventually, and all that sort of things. And did you end up making first 15?
Yeah, I played a few games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, at least you got a few games. I wasn't fucking good enough. That's all right. Rugby wasn't like my forte. I sort of picked it up later in my high school career. But yeah, it's quite interesting. You after high school, what did you end up doing?
After high school, so initially I enrolled in engineering at UQ.
Yeah.
So I got like an OP5 and I was like, okay, I'm a dude.
You were a hustler. Like back in high school, man, like so you lived like an hour and a half away or something like that?
Yeah, like in Bow Desert. So like
Bow Desert, yeah.
Yeah, an hour away from the school. I wasn't the hustler. My old man was the hustler.
That's true.
He was the one who had to drive me to school every day.
And he worked every day as well.
Yeah.
Like, that was insane. And he used to so me and Tom used to train together in the morning at the gym. And this was like, I don't know, 6 a.m. or something. So you guys are like waking up 4 a.m.
Bro,
or
like
something.
4:30, I'm getting up. In winter, there's like frost on the ground at my place in Bow Desert. And then my dad's just like making his coffee, just like, all right, another run down to school for my son. Like, man, parents, right?
Such a legend though. And he was such a good dude. Every single morning he was there with us. And then he would not only, like take you, and then he would even wait and just chill and stay sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, and, make sure we're doing the right thing in the gym and everything like that.
Man.
So
good.
It was crazy.
Blessed.
But you were hard work as well because you were smart. I remember you always very academically like on top of things, and were you on a scholarship? At TSS?
Yeah, so I was on an academic scholarship at TSS.
Got it.
Yeah. So kind of had to keep my grades up and stuff like that.
Yeah, of course.
But it was weird, right? After school, I was like, okay, I'm a guy. Relative semi-smart, like, I can get by.
Yeah.
And I got an OP5. What do you do?
Yeah, right.
I didn't know what to do.
Yeah. Well, look, I don't think many people.
No one does. And I was like, all right, well, with this kind of like mold, I'll just go do engineering. Yeah. Not knowing anything really about it, to be honest. Right. I was just like, I fit the criteria, so I'll just go and do it.
Right.
So I started doing engineering, got into it. It was hectic.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it too much.
Right.
But I was way too stubborn to quit though.
Yeah.
And like, that's kind of how I've always been, just like too stubborn to quit because I felt like I'd be a quitter.
Yeah.
So I did like 3 years of engineering knowing that I never wanted to work.
So did you end up getting a degree? Or?
No. I left after 3 years.
What the hell?
I know.
How long left did you have left?
I probably had another like 2 or 3 years because I was doing like a double degree. And then I'd also cut my subjects down. Like I was like on the verge of, it was worse. Like I was on the verge of quitting.
Yeah.
But then, because I was just like winding my subjects down. So instead of doing like 4 a semester, I was doing like 2 or 3 and then running like a business on the side as well.
Right.
So I was like way more focused on that.
Yeah,
and then I'd just like duck into uni do a class, give like minimum effort, and then just like duck out again and go service my clients and stuff.
So what did you do after that then? So
after that,
so did you do your 3 years?
Yeah,
and
so I did 3 years.
Finish something else or?
Yeah. So I did 3 years of engineering.
Yeah.
And then I took like 6 months off.
Right.
Ran the business, just did that type of stuff. Played a lot of golf.
Yeah.
And then I was talking to my mum one day and I was just like, I don't know what to do kind of thing. And then she's like, well, what do you do in your spare time, basically? Like, what do you do? What interests you as a hobby kind of thing?
Yeah.
And at the time I was really I always have been, but like really into finance, like studying.
Yeah.
Like learning about index funds, watching videos on YouTube all about finance, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And like in hindsight, I was always like that as a kid. Like I was that weird kid that was like, okay, I got like $20 from my parents for like whatever, an allowance or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it's like, what term deposit can I get like the highest interest?
Really?
Yes, it was really weird. Like I was a 10-year-old kid just like, hey mum, go set up a term deposit with Bank of Queensland for me because I can get 0.5% more interest than
How did you know this stuff?
I'd like Google it, research it, look at flyers.
Who got you interested? Was there someone that you looked up to or a mentor or?
Bro, like honestly, I've got no idea.
You just, that's the way your mind was working.
Like when I was young and when you're in like, I think it's like year 6 or 7, you learn about compounding interest.
Yeah.
It just clicked and I was like, this is like fucking the shit. Like this is going to change people's lives.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just was that kid that kind of just got the whole compound interest thing.
Yeah.
And then I was like, wow. And I was doing the compound interest calculation of if I have this term deposit for the next like 10 years, then I'll turn my $20 into like however much it was. And I'm like, fuck, that's sick.
So you're always about the finance side of things.
Yeah, like in hindsight, like thinking back on it, I remember like going through this exercise and being like to my mum, go and open a term deposit with Bank of Queensland and put my money in it for me, please.
I'm 26 and I barely understand what a term deposit is. Like I get the basis of it. I just don't see the massive benefit of it.
Well, now you don't see the benefit of it because they're fucking shit.
So you finally learned.
Well, I mean, okay, you got to think back then, right? Like when I was 10 years old, so what's that, 14 years ago, pre-GFC, we're looking at interest rates of, like 4-5%.
Right.
Through like a term deposit, and you're paying pretty high interest on your home loan at that time as well. Yeah. So, interest rates were very different back then to what they are today.
Right.
And back then it's like, it kind of made sense to do it. It's like way back in the day, you could get like 10% on a savings account, for example.
Right.
Like, it was nuts.
Yeah.
Like you didn't have to do anything. You didn't have to invest. You just had to put your money in a savings account and then the bank would just give you like 10% interest on it.
Right.
Like ages ago, like pre us.
And so that's why you were sort of like understood it.
Well, that's why I was like, you know what, like it makes sense to just have this term deposit. Yeah. I didn't really, at 10 years old, I didn't really fully understand like stocks, investing, that type of thing. I wasn't in a position to open like an investment account, but I was in a position to tell my mum to open a savings account or a term deposit.
Yeah, exactly. That's so interesting. So then while you were at university and you were studying, what were you studying by then?
So I took 6 months off and then I went and I was speaking to my mum about this and she was like, what do you do? And I look into finance, that type of stuff. And I was like, I look into finance, what to invest in. When I was planning where I was going to invest my money before I even had money.
Right.
Like it was crazy.
Yeah. You were just always on that level of thinking.
I was always
even in high school?
Yeah, pretty much.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's probably where like it started for me, like in late high school, starting looking into these type of things and going like, when I'm actually working, like this is what I'm going to do with my money.
Yeah. Did you ever want things though, or you're not just a huge person that wants
to buy stuff?
Yeah.
No, not really.
Right.
Like,
so what do you want? What did you, when you were that young, like in high school, for example, what did you want all this money for? Was it for your future or was it, was that what you were always thinking about?
It's got to be like, in all honesty, like when growing up, we didn't have a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where it's like growing up, we didn't have a lot of money and it was always kind of a little bit stressful. Like I didn't want for anything.
Yeah.
Like I always had food to eat. I always had a roof over my head, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it was more just like, especially when I went to TSS as well, because I went from, you got to think, like I went from a place going to school where basically the median income is like 35 grand a year for a family.
Yeah.
To a place where the median income is like,
fuck,
a
who
lot
knows?
of,
who really knows? It's a lot
who
of
really
money.
knows? Yeah, I don't think even the ATO knows, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, you know, like where you're seeing like, you know, kids come to school in like literally a Ferrari.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, you're driving someone's house where I used to come from.
Yeah.
Right?
So true.
So
true.
At that time, I'm like, there's so much more to this, right? And I don't want to be in that position where I'm kind of stressed about money. And I kind of always linked it, like whenever I'd watch a show and stuff like that, like a TV show, and you see like, I don't know, like issues in relationships, issues with friendships, that type of thing. It's always about money.
Yes.
And I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want that to be a problem. Maybe other things will be a problem, but if I can solve that.
You just want to, take that factor out.
I can see how I can solve this so easily, right? And I can see how I can solve that easily.
Yeah.
Now, other things are a bit more complex, but this is easy because I understand compound interest from when I was like in grade 6 learning about it. So I understand that I can solve this pretty easily.
Yeah.
And then the other things I can worry about as they kind of come up.
Got it.
What were we talking about?
So what were you doing at uni?
Oh, uni, yes.
We're almost there.
We're almost there, yeah. We're almost there. So I was talking to my mum and she was kind of like, what do you do? And I was like, look at finance things. She's like, why don't you be a financial advisor? And I'm like, I didn't even know what a financial advisor does. I didn't even know it was a thing, to be honest with you. So I was like, all right. And I was looking into it and it was basically just like, you know, telling people what to do with their money. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and you were already very interested in money. And you were already telling your mum what to do with money.
Exactly. I was already very interested. I was already telling my mum what to do with like the money, the little bit of money that I would get, you know, every school holidays. Put it in this term deposit for me kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I looked into it a little bit. I did like personality quizzes and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, you know, my personality fits this pretty well.
Yeah.
So then I enrolled.
Do you believe in those personality quizzes or do you think they're full of shit?
I believe in them.
Right.
I believe in them definitely. Like I think that the Myers-Briggs one is really good.
Right.
And when you do it and you read about yourself a little bit, you're like, yeah, I can definitely see myself.
But don't you think that's a little bit like because somebody is telling you this is who you are, you go, oh yeah, this is me. Like, because I feel like if you would have got like a different characteristic of that test. In your mind, because that's the outcome, you might go, oh yeah, I could see myself in that. I could see myself. Like I'm a little bit like this with star signs as well. Like I love
star signs are fucking bullshit.
I'm questionable. I'm not sure if they are or they're not. Like I'm a Christian, but like I still sort of see it. Like I can see I can see the characteristics in star signs. Like, but then sometimes I think, am I just telling myself that?
Okay, I think the difference between the star signs and the personality test is the star signs, like you're a very complex person. Like we all have different layers of complexity to us that are built up over all the years that we've been alive, right? Yeah. So I think star signs, it's so generic that it's like there's going to be something in this that kind of fits you in some way.
Yeah.
Whereas like the personality test, because you're answering the questions, and it's like, what is like the first response to the answers in this question?
Yeah, gotcha.
It kind of, it just fits you a lot better. There's definitely things that aren't right about you. Yeah. But there's a lot more things that are kind of like, I do display these traits in this certain scenario.
Yeah.
Right?
Got it.
Because it's like basically, I'm telling the quiz like, okay, in this scenario, I do something like this. In this scenario, I do something like this. This would be my first response to this scenario. And then it kind of breaks it down further into like, this would be a great career for you because of your responses to these questions. This is what you like more than doing this, blah, blah, blah. So that's why I think it's a little bit more accurate. Yeah. And I've done them quite a few times, like over the years, and I can see how my personality changes. And then when I kind of look in hindsight, I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Going from really introverted in high school, not really wanting to kind of put my head out of my shell kind of thing, to then as I left high school, like I became much more of an extrovert. Much more of an extrovert. Yeah. And I think it was the process of owning the business really, because I had to get outside of myself to go and knock on doors and sell like my coffee machines to people.
So let's go back to that then. So while you were at university, you were studying finance at the time.
Yeah.
That you agreed on with your mother.
Yes, exactly.
And then
thanks, Mum.
At the same time, you started a business.
Yeah. So we bought a franchise.
Okay.
Me and my partner bought a franchise.
Right.
We bought a coffee service franchise.
Shout out Hannah, by the way.
Yeah, thanks, Hannah.
I've known Hannah for a long time as
Longer
well.
Longer than me, yeah.
Yeah, so no, not in that way. But I've known her for a while. But yeah, go on.
So we owned a franchise while we were both in uni.
Yeah.
And it was great because it meant that, we didn't really have to work part-time jobs or anything.
Yeah.
It was kind of its part-time job in itself.
And what type, so was it a coffee shop that...
No, so it was like I would have these big commercial grade coffee machines that were fully automatic, and I would take them and put them in like a kitchenette of a law firm or something like this. And then it would record every time someone clicked the button for like cappuccino, and then I would charge the firm for how many coffees all the employees and all the clients used for that month.
Would it be cheaper than going and buying a coffee though?
Yeah.
Cause are you charging like $4?
No. It was like $1 per cup.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was like $1 per coffee. They would supply the milk, but I would supply everything else, the beans, the sugar, all this kind of thing. I would supply all that. I'd come every week and service it for them. It might take me half an hour.
How did you get into this? Like what drew you to just start this?
I knew I wanted to do something, right?
How old were you, by the way, when...
I just turned 18.
What? You were 18 when you were doing this?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I just turned 18 and I knew kind of like I wanted to do something in business, right? Like I think I was really into Grant Cardone at the time. And I knew I wanted to do something in business, and Hannah's family started this whole thing, right? Hannah's dad is the franchisor for this whole company.
Wow.
And I knew about it peripherally because I'd only been in a relationship with her for like maybe 12 months or something, like 6 to 12 months.
Yeah.
So I knew kind of about it.
Yeah.
But then I didn't really know all of the details.
Yeah.
And then I heard more about it and I was like, oh yeah, sweet. So then what I did was I went and found someone on Gumtree that was trying to sell their franchise.
Right.
And then I bought it off them.
The dad's franchise.
Not the dad's franchise.
Yeah.
So the dad's the franchisor.
Yeah, but then...
And then I went and found someone on Gumtree who was trying to sell their franchise, and I bought their franchise off them.
Why? Why not just speak to Hannah's dad?
Because I didn't want to do it. I wanted to like do it myself as well, So
like, you wanted to be a safe environment, an individual.
Well, it was a safe environment for me to do it, and I recognized that. Like I was probably the least risk business that I could do because I had like a personal relationship with the franchisor, right? So like it was the least risk kind of business that I could do.
Yeah.
But I also knew that I didn't want to just get given something as well. So I went and found someone. I negotiated the price. This guy was like 70 years old and I'm 18 negotiating like the purchase of a business of this dude.
Yeah.
Right? And he had an existing client base as well, which was very important. So it had cash flow already.
Yeah.
And then I just had to add to that.
So when you went out to all these other businesses to actually, say, hey, we got this coffee machine.
Yeah.
Do you want to put it in your office? How did you go about finding the right person to talk to? Because say you're going to these big companies and stuff, or these law firms or whatever, and you're walking in there, are you talking to the receptionist or are you talking to the general manager? Like, I doubt the general manager really cares about making decisions like this. Exactly. So how do you find the right person?
And that's the thing. Like when I first started doing it, it was the receptionist. Like I was just going in and just knocking on the door, going in and talking to the receptionist, like, hey, you want a coffee machine? And in hindsight, that's ridiculous. Like you have to be in a very specific scenario where they're already having the internal conversation of like, we need this service for that to work. Right? Like that needs to be already going around the organization that we need this service. It's now just a matter of finding the right service for us, for that to work.
Yeah.
But the best way that it worked for me was the relationship side of things. So I had an existing client base, and I was really lucky that one of my clients was like a really
Where
big
did
company.
this existing client base come
The
from?
guy that I bought it from had an existing client base. So he had like 4, I think, clients already.
Yeah.
And then what I did was I just built on that. So I was really lucky that, I had one of my clients was like a really big company in Australia called Boral, construction company. And they had like branches all over the place. So what I did was I just made sure that I provided really great service. So then if it ever came up that, they needed one of these machines elsewhere, then I'd be the first person they speak to, right?
Yeah.
And I built good relationships with the people, always having a laugh, that type of thing. And that's where I went from this like introvert into the extrovert, because I really had to get outside of myself to do that.
Yeah.
Right. And that kind of like process kind of changed me a little bit. And then it was after that fact that I did another one of these personality quizzes, and I saw that change within the personality quiz as well.
So are you one of those type of people that are really into like self-growth and self-development?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But how do you think that, like, I feel like self-growth and self-development has become a really big topic nowadays, right? And a lot of people are into it. But we're getting some weird shit come out. Like I think there's just some weird like self-development and self-gurus like out there. Like they're all like, you need to, I don't know, maybe I don't understand it, but they're all like, you need to meditate and write gratifications every day and all this sort of stuff. Like, I don't know. There's been hundreds and hundreds of years of human beings not doing that and doing just fine. Why all of a sudden do we all need to do it? Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it makes me feel better, but it doesn't actually change anything. It just mentally, but
doesn't everything start with your mind though? At the end of the day,
yeah. I just don't think. I don't think this is the solution. I think it's just like a Band-Aid. Like we're just going. You know what? This makes me feel better, and I can. Why can't you just think right? Like, why do you have to do something that makes you think right?
Yeah, because some people, like you got to, like your experience is a lot different to other people's experiences, right? So other people have had certain experiences in their lives that have led their mind to think a certain way. And sometimes, like for you, it's obviously really easy to just kind of switch your mind and just be like, I'm going to think about this now and I'm going to do this. Whereas other people are conditioned in a certain way where it takes a lot of effort to actually change their mind. Like think about someone who's been gluttonous their whole life, right?
Yeah.
And then it takes a lot of effort for them to actually get into a gym, do workouts, and change their body. It's the exact same with the mind, right? If you're thinking a certain way for your whole life and you're conditioned to think a certain way, it takes like a very special effort in order for you to change the way you're thinking, because you've just been conditioned like that for so long.
Yeah.
So like for you, it's easy because you can just change that very quickly, because your conditioning is different to other people's, right? Whereas, so that's why like the meditation and the writing down of like affirmations and stuff like that probably works for those people where it takes a very special effort to change them.
But I feel like everyone is telling you to do that. Like I feel like nobody's coming up with anything unique to say. Like all these self-developments and stuff, they're all just saying the same thing. Like we're not seeing anyone that's different. Like this is one thing, like a lot of people would know Gary Vee, right? And he's extremely like motivational, tells you straight to your face kind of thing. But I really like the way he looks at it. And it's more like, you got to figure out yourself. Like you got to know who you are, like spend that time thinking about who you are. I feel like when you have that confidence in who you are and know what you like and what you're good at and what you're not good at and your personality and everything, I don't know if you need to keep doing these self-gratification things.
But is the self-gratification the start of the self-reflection to work out who you are though? Is that the like path of least resistance to get you to the point where you're reflecting on yourself, reflecting on your past, reflecting on all this and working out what it is that makes you who you are? Maybe that's why, right?
Could be right.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
And meditating kind of just like you spoke about meditating, just calming your mind so that you can reflect on these things.
Yeah. So this meditating thing, I think I'm super interested in it. I wish I could do it. And I know everybody that does do it, they're like, it takes time. Like, it's got to be patient. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not a really patient person. I cannot quiet my mind. And part of me, I don't like to. I really enjoy having a busy mind. I really enjoy thinking about something. Like something I'm trying to work on is actually focusing my thought. So
that's meditation, bro. What you just said is meditation, focusing your thought. Like meditation.
But I thought meditation is to
it's not think about
let
nothing.
Go and think about nothing. Like
no.
They're just sitting there.
It's focus. No, so meditation, I think meditation means like breath or something like this, right? So the start of meditation is just focusing on your breath. So it's having the focused thought on what is my breath doing. And I'm no meditation guru or anything like that. I've done it I do it semi-regularly, but I'm no meditation guru. Yeah. But, it's just focusing on that breath.
But I don't want to focus on my breath. I want to focus on a problem.
Meditation is focusing on anything though. So you could meditate on the problem by just being in a state where you've quietened your mind to the point where you're only thinking on that one problem.
I like this. I really do. I'm really like from what you've said, I've come around to meditation. I'm more now like, wow, I'm gonna meditate all the time, guys. I'm just sitting here meditating.
No, and genuinely, you could just sit here and just like be pondering one thought, how to solve this one problem, and that's meditating on that problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like it's just quieting all the other polarizing emotions and polarizing thoughts in your mind so that you're achieving maximum simplicity and you're just thinking on that one thing.
Yeah.
Pondering that one thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And you do it like it's probably bad, but I end up doing it when I'm driving. Like I'm driving along and I'm just thinking about like this one thing.
Yeah.
And nothing else is in my mind. Driving.
Yeah. God, everyone on the road, get off the road when Tom's on the road.
Don't meditate while driving, kids.
God.
So yeah, and you're just thinking about that one thing and you're running it over in your mind over and over and over and over again. And that's when like the most inspiration comes out of you when you're just pondering this one thought. And it's not like eyes closed, mind quiet, thinking about nothing.
Yeah.
But you're still like meditating in a sense though.
Yeah. And I agree 100%. Like I think you fully converted me. I'm now meditating all the time, guys. I am completely. I'm a meditation guru.
And this is like one of those things where.
Sorry, I actually just thought I could be meditating during sex. I could just be thinking, don't come. She'll be like, what are you doing? Just meditating.
I think meditating takes longer than 30 seconds for us.
What a dick.
And this is the thing, right? Like, it's really interesting because we want to put things in boxes. We want to be like black or white. Meditating is thinking about nothing and that's all it is.
Yeah.
But there's so many different layers to this, right?
Yeah,
like it's not black and white. Nothing is black and white. There's like millions of shades of gray in between.
I think maybe it just the whole idea it's been perceived as just a little daunting and scary for me. Like those, it's all about your inner peace and you just feel real.
Well, we can do it together.
Yeah, let's hold hands and sing Kumbaya.
Yeah.
Like that to me, I don't want to do that.
That's like a polarization though, right?
Yeah.
That's like that's one extreme.
Yeah. But it's so common. It's an extreme, but it's common.
But you got to think about where do you see this though as well? Like is someone trying to influence you in a way to get you to do this when you see this?
I don't know. It's quite interesting because I feel like, this meditation thing that's sort of grown throughout time as it started off with like, as a religion, like monks and things like that. But it's sort of grown into this hipster, far left.
Are you talking political left or what?
Not like just left thinking.
Okay,
like,
sure.
Do you know what I mean? The far left thinking that has just created this meditation into this weird voodoo I have to relax and you're not making me feel relaxed kind of feeling.
Yeah, for sure. And that's that's like the extreme. That's the extremist meditator, right? Like, whereas there's heaps of shades of grey as you move to the right as well.
Yeah.
So many shades.
Well, that's
of grey.
what you've sort of exposed for me. Yeah. Like from me just seeing it in this one light, I totally like now I love it. I think I totally
you do it all the time now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm trying to build that and trying to grow that. So then what happened with the coffee shop business? How did that go? Was it successful? Like,
it was good.
What was the purpose of it? Were you trying to make millions? Was it just to make a wage? Like, what was the goal?
I don't think I went in with that idea, to be honest. Like, I didn't go into it with an idea of like, I just wanted to do it. All I knew was I wanted to do it, and it was going to be what it was going to be. And it turned out to be like perfect because it meant that Hannah didn't have to work while she was studying. I didn't have to work while I was studying. All I did was the
How much did it bring in?
How much did it bring in? It brought in like 50 grand a year.
50 grand a year?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It brought in 50 grand a year for us two students to just kind of
Is that before tax or after?
Well, I mean, it's a small business. You don't really pay much tax. I don't think we paid tax really ever on it because there's all fuel.
Should we ask the tax man? Should we get the ATO?
I don't know, maybe. Don't tell me about my Bitcoin.
Yeah, I know. We'll get there.
Yeah, so but it was perfect for what it was, right?
Yeah.
I worked like 1 day a week really on this business, like just servicing the clients. Occasionally I'd do, a little bit of extra marketing stuff like that, but really it was just the servicing side of things and maintaining the existing client base that I kind of built up initially while we were studying.
Yeah.
But it just, and then at the end we just sold it and
did you sell it for more or pretty much what you bought it for?
We sold it for a little bit more than what we bought it for.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you had a big client base and we
had a bigger client base. Yeah, exactly.
Fair enough.
It was just perfect for getting us through university without having to, work a huge amount on like part-time jobs and stuff like that.
So then what did you end up doing once you finished university? You sold the business. What was
I studied financial planning for 2 years at Griffith University after that. Once I realized this is what I wanted to do because I transferred like a bunch of credits from engineering. So it wasn't a waste of time at the end of the day.
Still, you paid a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I did. Yeah. But at the,
for a finance guy, don't you look at like the money side of it?
No, because it was I paid the money to work out this is what I didn't want to do as well, right?
Expensive way to figure that out.
I know, but hey, it is what it is.
So then, all right, so after that, you went into finance. You got a job in finance.
I got a job in finance pretty much when I first started uni. Like I knew this is what I want to do and I just tunnel visioned into this is what I'm going to do. So I just started applying for jobs as just like an administration person at a financial planning company. Got in there at a financial planning company, just in admin, like processing paperwork, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it was really, really good because obviously my path was to become a financial advisor.
Yeah.
But it was perfect because I learned kind of all the ropes from the lowest of the low all the way up kind of, so I knew what the plight of everyone else around me was while I was a financial advisor kind of thing. And I think that was really important to work my way through like that. So I worked a couple of days a week while I was studying in a financial planning firm, 1 day a week running my business because I still had it until I went full time as a financial advisor. And then 1 day a week at uni kind of thing.
Right.
But the difference was this time my experience with university versus the last time was I was actually inspired to do what I was doing. So it just came so easy for me. Every time I thought about the work, thought about the assignments, it was like a state of flow instantly for me. So immediately I kind of knew this is right for me. And it just made it super easy. And I got really good grades with very little study and effort, realistically. Very little study and effort.
You were just natural.
Because it was probably just because of all the personal study I had done prior to that, learning about
and
what
you're already interested, so you're probably figuring it all out before you were being taught it and everything like that.
Yeah. So it came really natural to me. It inspired me to learn about it. I was very curious about the subjects versus, engineering. I just didn't care how many rebars go in this concrete slab or whatever. I was I don't give a shit about this. Yeah. So, going into finance was definitely the right thing. And then I worked as a client service officer in a financial planning firm. Went up to associate advisor, which is basically second chairing meetings with the head advisor. Then a review advisor and then an actual financial advisor after that. So
then Are you still a financial advisor now? What are you doing now?
So now I work for like a fintech company. So basically what we do is we do software that identifies market structure for different assets.
Yeah.
So it's still in finance.
Yeah.
But really like the emphasis is on the software itself though.
Yeah, of course. So it's more the tech side of things, but it's still got that financial element. So you're sort of crossing a little bit of areas and industries in a way, because you're still very knowledgeable and aware of all the financial side, and that's a big part of what the actual
the software that we produce is all about. Yeah.
But it's also the software side now that you're sort of learning more about, and I guess a business, because it's a startup, right?
Yeah, definitely. So it's a startup, and our software basically like identifies market structure across any asset class, and then gives you kind of actionable trade and investment ideas based on that market structure, based on the general trend of the market, based on the price action, which is basically just a fancy term for how the market's moving.
So who is this for?
This is a company called Break Free Trading. So
but like, who would use this product?
Anybody.
Yeah,
so it's a subscription-based product. Yeah. So $70 US a month is like our starting subscription. So reasonably priced for anyone really. And it's just like if you want to get into trading, investing, then you can use this software basically.
But then is it giving you advice on just the US market or the
It can be applied to any asset class. So
you can choose.
Yeah, primarily what we focus on is Forex, so currencies.
Okay.
So taking trades on currencies.
Right.
But then, there's equities.
So it's not a trading platform, so you can't actually do the trades on it, or you can?
Yeah, you can.
Oh.
Everything.
Everything?
So everything, yeah. So you can link your broker to the platform. You can place your trades directly from like our trading terminal. You can look at your charts there. You can load in our algorithm, which identifies, the market structure and things like this.
So do you guys do costs for like pulling out money and stuff?
No, so we don't custody people's money.
Got it.
What we do is we just provide like a bridge between our trading terminal, our software, and the broker who then custodies the money. So the broker is where you deposit your funds. They facilitate the buyers and the sellers, like connecting them up.
Would that be like ComSec?
Yeah, like ComSec. But
is that the broker?
No, that's not the broker
So what would
you can use any broker, right?
Right. But ComSec is a broker.
It is a broker, yeah.
Right.
ComSec is a broker.
Yeah.
ComSec is specifically for equities though. So ASX listed shares and I think there is US listed shares on there as well.
Yeah.
But we would be using a broker like IC Markets or something like this so that we can trade Forex with leverage, we can trade crypto, we can trade stocks, whatever we kind of want to do.
Yeah.
And then we have like a software that bridges the broker with our software so you can connect it all up. You can see your account and everything like that in there.
Yeah.
And then you can just place your trades directly from our trading terminal so you don't have to kind of even open the broker's platform at all.
I got it. Yeah. And then, so you told me a little bit about this before. I don't know if you want to get into it, but how are you getting paid?
In Bitcoin, yeah. So I chose to get paid in Bitcoin, yeah. Because...
Why?
Yeah, okay. So the reason why is just because, so I work for an overseas entity, right? So it's like wire transfer or Bitcoin were basically my options.
Yeah, of course.
Bitcoin is much faster than a wire transfer to process. So it's like 10 minutes or something like that for you to get Bitcoin into your Bitcoin wallet. And you know what? Like I invested in Bitcoin prior to that and I owned Bitcoin before that. And I've got like an app where I can use my cryptocurrency on a card and buy stuff and stuff like that. So I saw no reason not to do it.
Fair enough.
And at the time, like it was... in hindsight, a really good idea because Bitcoin is like pumped recently.
It's smashing it.
Yeah. And like when you think about Bitcoin, it's kind of like hard money, right? Because there's a limited supply of Bitcoin, the same as there's like a limited supply of gold. The only difference is we don't know what the supply of gold is until we dig it all up.
Yeah.
Whereas Bitcoin, we know there's only 21 million Bitcoins. So it's like
Do we? Is that a fact?
Yeah, that's a fact.
There's only 21 million Bitcoins.
Ever, yeah. There's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoins. Oh, Satoshi Nakamoto just decided 21 million.
I heard about this. Apparently, it's just rumors that he is the guy that created Bitcoin.
Oh, No, he definitely did. Because there's
apparently nobody really knows who created
no one knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is. It could be a group, it could be an individual. It's an anonymous like name for the entity or person that created Bitcoin. So there's like a white paper which basically explains Bitcoin, explains the blockchain, all this kind of thing. And Satoshi Nakamoto is the author of this white paper.
Yeah.
Now, the idea of Bitcoin it started back in like 2008, 2009 when the banks got bailed out by the US government in the GFC.
Yeah.
Okay. So they were doing the wrong things. They were kind of like, manipulating assets and things like this. Basically, the GFC was caused because they pulled together a group of risky investments and called them safe investments. And then sold them to a whole bunch of people, leveraged them up as well. So sold the same thing like 10 times to 10 different people basically. And then when this fell, when these risky investments they were calling safe all kind of fell apart, then it just led to a massive collapse of everything basically. Okay, because the leverage just came in, margin calls, all this kind of thing. Everything just basically collapsed, and that caused, banks to fail.
That's right.
And
it's like The Big Short movie.
Well, The Big Short is a really good representation of what happened in the GFC, right? The Big Short's a great movie. I love The Big Short.
My old roommate used to love it too, and he used to watch it like 6 or 7 times a year, and I'd be like, dude, I can't watch this again.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's great, but 6 or 7 times a year is a lot.
It's crazy.
So it was kind of originated when Satoshi Nakamoto, whoever Satoshi Nakamoto was, realized that centralizing the control of money is never going to work. So it has to be decentralized. It has to be controlled by the people so that no individual ideas or agendas can influence this supply of money. Basically.
So what do you think is going to happen in the future with Bitcoin? Like, do you think it's going to become our actual currency rather than having the dollar and the yen and, all the other currencies?
I don't think that we'll be buying things in Bitcoins, but I think that we could be buying things with some sort of currency that is backed by Bitcoin potentially. Like, for example,
like a crypto or...
so crypto is like blockchain, right? Like blockchain is the software behind what makes cryptocurrencies.
Got it.
Right. And already different entities have already started using blockchain to create kind of a currency.
Yeah.
Right. So there's like this digital currency that the Chinese are working on, the digital yuan or whatever. But so you got to think, back in the day, there was this thing called the gold standard. Have you heard of the gold standard? So the US dollar was linked to gold.
Right.
Yeah. So this is when it was like an inflation hedge almost, right? You couldn't inflate or deflate the US dollar because it was pegged to the price of gold.
Right.
And then I think Nixon unpegged it to the price of gold so that they could start this thing called quantitative easing. Right. And quantitative easing is when the central bank prints new fiat currency so that they can purchase assets with it.
Right.
Okay. And what this does when you push more supply into a market and there's not more demand to make up for that supply, then the prices fall.
Right.
Okay. And the value of that thing falls.
Yeah.
So when you're constantly pushing more and more and more supply into a market and there's no demand to make up for that supply, then obviously there's debasement of that asset. And that's exactly what's been happening ever since the US dollar was unpegged from gold.
Right.
Is the US dollar started to debase.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because this is exactly what happened when the Romans started. So what happened is the Roman, I don't know what it was called, whatever they use, their currency, right?
Oh, yeah.
They were paying, obviously, their soldiers in these gold coins, which was like their currency. And what they realized is they couldn't afford to keep using these gold coins. So they started reducing the amount of gold in the coins.
Oh,
and you can see at the peak of Roman power, they had 100% gold coins they were using. And then as their power was reducing more and more and more, they were adding more and more copper or bronze or whatever into these coins. And this is the debasement of this currency.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So no currency has kind of lasted more than 70 years or something like that.
Right.
Because debasement has always happened and it's a perpetual thing throughout time.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
So you can see like as the Romans' power declined, they were paying their soldiers with like these gold coins that had more and more and more bronze or copper or some cheaper metal in them, all the way to the point where they didn't accept this. The soldiers didn't want to fight anymore because they weren't getting paid with gold.
Yeah.
So they just stopped fighting. Right. And then this is what led to the decline of the Roman Empire, basically.
Yeah.
And it's a very similar thing to what happened when the US dollar was unpegged to the gold standard back in the day.
Yeah.
And you can see that, as the supply has increased of this US dollar, it's become worth less and less and less.
Yeah.
And that's the idea that Bitcoin is here to basically, number one, decentralize this.
Yeah.
And number two, make it a hard asset, meaning that you can't print more of them.
Yeah.
You can't create more than the maximum amount of 21 million.
Yeah. Understand.
Okay? Yeah.
Interesting.
And yeah, that's basically like, I could definitely see this in the future being something that is controlled by the people, right?
Yeah.
It's controlled by the people because you can't manipulate the Bitcoin blockchain.
Yeah.
Right?
It blows my mind because because of this Bitcoin boom and stuff, I was like, fuck, I need to like understand it a little bit. So I listened to a podcast as well about a guy that was talking about it, and it was just it's so deep, man. Like it's so complicated. Like I guess the science behind it is complicated, but in general, it's easy to understand. I just find it so fascinating, man. Like, and I think it's something that we all need to become educated on because obviously it's going to be around for a while. This isn't just a risky investment anymore. But yeah, I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I think there's still people out there that are like, oh, it's just some fake, internet coin and stuff like that. But it's really not anymore.
Yeah.
It's beyond that point now. It's beyond that point. It's nearly like a $1 trillion asset. I think like the market cap of Bitcoin is like, 600 or 700 billion US dollars or something like this.
Wow.
So, and the total crypto market cap is like $1 trillion. So,
wow.
It's beyond just being a random internet coin now that's kind of worthless.
So like, I just want to change topics a little bit. Just it's still in the finance space, but we talked a little bit about this a while ago, which was property, right? And you're not a property buyer. You don't believe in it, or
there's a lot of shades of grey, like everything, right? There's black and white. And there's
most
a lot of
Australians, like most Australians, have made their money from property.
I think some have,
right.
A lot. Okay, so you got to think about if we think back a while, okay? Because I've talked to like 90-year-olds about this in the past, right? And property back in the day, like if we're talking 60, 70 years ago, you could basically purchase a property with like 2 years worth of your salary pretty much. That was like the median cost of a house, basically. Yeah. So 1 to 2 years of your gross salary.
Yeah.
So like I was talking to a bus driver. Yeah, he was a bus driver back in the day and he's 90 odd now.
Yeah.
But he was saying in Sydney, he could purchase like a property for 1.5 times what his gross salary was as a bus driver.
Right.
And he could buy a car with like 1 month's worth of salary pretty much.
That's right.
So, like that's why so many people have made a lot of money from property because back in the day, it was reasonably priced relative to the earnings that people were making.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then obviously there's been some pretty explosive growth when you think about, relative prices to property today versus what they were back then. Pretty explosive growth. And as those properties are passed down to, new generations and stuff like that, yes, there's been some money made. But I don't think it's the way to do it today.
Yeah.
Okay. And the reason is because the way people typically go about purchasing a home or purchasing a property, most people are purchasing a property for a home, right? Like, do you want to talk about investment or you want to talk about home? Because I can talk about both.
Let's just stay on a home. So like, should you rent or should you buy?
Again, it's you're asking me like a black and white question when there's many shades of grey in between, okay?
Okay.
I think that I'll describe the way that you shouldn't do it, all right? And it's the way that most people go about doing it. What they do is they go find a property that they're able to purchase. So something that is of a price point that they can actually afford, okay? Now, typically what you're ending up doing here, and you have to think as well, like people also want something that's nice. So they want something that's nice.
Yeah, because it's a personal. When you're living in it, it's personal. So
exactly.
Yeah,
it's a personal
So we're not looking at as an investment.
It's an emotional decision. It's not an investment decision. Correct. It's an emotional decision. Correct. Okay. And this is the difference. It's an emotional decision of what they're purchasing. It has to be nice, which means typically it has to be pretty new. It has to be like white marble, blah, 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 whatever. It has to be something you can afford.
Yeah.
So what people end up doing is they go and purchase something that like is in a large development area. On the Gold Coast, we're talking Pimpama, Upper Coomera, that type of area where a lot of development is happening, and you can purchase a nice place that's relatively new for a pretty good price. You're talking $400,000 or $500,000 or something like that for the same quality of home that you would purchase for like almost $1 million anywhere in a more kind of already well-established area.
Yeah.
So this is what people do, okay? Yeah. And you have to think, when you're buying property, if you want to buy it as an investment, you have to buy gold. You have to buy Bitcoin, something that you can't replicate.
Yeah.
Okay? Something that's very unique in an area where there isn't really much more development going on, okay?
Yeah.
So when you buy these things in these like large development areas, the only people that make the money is the developer.
Yeah.
Right? Because as a financial advisor, I spoke to people that have bought properties in these areas, and 10 years later, it's worth like 30 grand less than what they bought it for, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So because the reason why is because you purchase your house today, right? And then over the next 5 years or whatever, they're still developing this area. They're building new houses, pretty much exactly the same as what you've got, because they've got maybe 5 different models of house that they're building as a developer. And they're building out this whole area.
Yeah.
So in, say, 3 or 4 years, you want to go and get your house refinanced, you want to sell it, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
There's a house next door that's almost identical to yours, but has been built 3 years earlier. 3 years later, sorry. So it makes it newer, exactly the same. So why would someone pay, $400,000, $500,000 for your house, which is older than the one next door, that they can get for the exact same price and it's brand new?
Well, look, that's if you're buying in a cookie cutter area. But
this is what I'm saying. This
no
is like the
property is the same size, the same look.
This is what I'm saying. This is the typical way people do it, right? And they get a 30-year mortgage on this thing, and typically they can only put into it like 10% as a deposit.
So when do you think you would buy property? When would you?
When would I buy a property?
Yeah.
Well, when it's like the property, something unique, and it's like the property I'm going to be in for a very long time.
So the dream home.
Yes, because people move on average every 8 years, okay? And when you've got a 30-year mortgage and you're paying this off over 30 years, most people just pay the minimum onto their mortgage, all right? So what happens is, if you ever look at an amortization curve, so amortization is basically how much you're paying onto principal and interest over a 30-year loan or over any period of loan. You can produce an amortization curve and it tells you how much you're paying on principal and how much you're paying on interest. Over the first 18 and a half years, you're paying more onto interest than you are on principal on a 30-year mortgage. And in the first 10 years, every payment, less than 30% of that is actually going to the principal.
Wow.
70% is going to the interest side of things.
Yeah, wow.
Okay, so if people are moving every 8 years, out of every time they throw money into this repayment, only 20 to 30% of that every payment is actually going into the principal side of things.
Wow.
Most of it is going into the interest. And if people are moving every 8 years, they go and they buy a new place and they've got a little bit extra out of this property of the small amount of principal that they've paid, right? When they sell it, they pay all the costs to sell. They pay like the agent's fees, the lawyer's fees, all this kind of thing to sell it.
Yeah.
And then they have just basically like an extra maybe $10,000 or $20,000. And that's over the last 8 years, the little bit of principal extra that they've paid, right?
So when you were a financial advisor though, did you advise people against purchasing?
No, because you got to think when you're...
So can you trust a financial advisor in what they're advising you?
You can trust some, you can't trust all of them.
But why would they not tell me what's best for me?
Well, that's the thing. There's lots of shades of grey, right? Most people, when they see a financial advisor, they're not purchasing their first home. They're already maybe 2 or 3 homes in, and they're like 40 or 50 or something like that.
Yeah.
And they're already a long way on their journey. And basically they're kind of going, oh shit, I need to retire soon, right? So they're already into the mortgage, all that kind of thing. So your main job then is to be like, okay, well, how do we actually repay this faster?
Yeah.
Right? So in a lot of cases, you know, you're not really giving that advice.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah.
So, just to finish everything up, I think we've talked about a lot of really good stuff. Financially, what do you think people make a lot of mistakes on that are very common, or what would you advise people?
Well, I'm not going to give advice to anyone.
Sorry, guys. I thought I could get them out.
I think that like people make it more complex than it needs to be. Like if you think back at like the 10-year-old Tom who was like, I've got $20 and I understand the concept of compound interest and I'm going to put in a term deposit and just let it compound, right? Like people make it far too complex. I think, you know, the keys are very simple. It's basically just like spend less than you make, take a portion of that, put it aside into like an emergency fund so that if something happens, then you're not out on your ass basically, you know, and you've got no money. And then allocate a certain percentage of every single dollar that you make into some sort of asset, into investment that cash flows.
Yeah.
Right. So whether it's stocks, a portfolio of stocks, whether it's maybe you are into property, maybe you have a certain niche that you understand property, you can add value to it, whatever. Maybe property is your thing. I don't know. But what I was saying is the typical way people go about doing property is wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. There's different ways to do it where you can make a lot of money, but you just got to choose something and you got to start investing in that, you know?
Yeah.
And a portfolio of things.
Yeah.
Right. And then you just, every single time you get paid, whether it's 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, 50% of what you make just needs to go into this. And it just needs to be like a tax for your future.
Yeah.
Right. And you just continue to do that over and over and over again. And that doesn't mean that you can't go out and, you know, start businesses and stuff as well, but it just has to be something that it's like, this is something that is a non-negotiable for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to put this amount away every single time I get paid. I'm going to increase that amount when I can. And it's going to be basically just there aside for me to use for my future. Right.
Right.
And it just reduces the uncertainty
Yeah.
of what's going to kind of happen down the track.
Yeah.
You know, like you're not uncertain anymore about, you know, am I going to have money? Am I not going to have money?
Yeah.
You're not, most people don't even think about it until they're 50, like I said.
Of course.
And at that point, it's pretty much too late. Like you can do some amazing things if you're like 20 and start doing exactly what I'm saying. You know, you get your first job, you're making what, $600-700 a week or something like that.
Yeah.
You take 10% of it, $60-70 a week. And you just put it into some sort of investment. And you just keep doing that for the rest of your life. As your income scales up, you scale up your the amount you're investing, and you just continue to do this.
Yeah.
Eventually you'll kind of just like blink and you'll have like a few $100,000 in there and you're like, what the?
And then it gives you opportunities.
And then you have opportunities with what you can do. You can do anything then. But the biggest problem is like people don't think about anything beyond like the 5 seconds in front of their face.
Yeah.
And don't think about like what could happen in a decade from now, what could happen in, you know, 2 decades from now. And it's, you know, when you start thinking in that like longer term, of the longer term outcomes, that's when you can start creating things, right? Like no one who's created anything like incredible has really thought about like, what can I do tomorrow to make something work? It's all about like, what is going to happen in a decade from now. Like you spoke about Gary Vee before.
Yeah.
He always talks about like over the next decade, this is going to be a thing. Over the next 2 decades, this is going to be a thing. He doesn't care about what's going to be a thing tomorrow, really. He just cares about what's going to be a thing over the next decade. And when you're 100%. Thinking at that level, you know, you're out of the day-to-day, the week-to-week, the month-to-month.
Yeah.
That's a form of meditation in itself. You're like decluttering your mind out of what's going to happen tomorrow to how can I make this thing happen in the next decade?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We're just not programmed to think like that, you know?
Honestly, Tom, I'm impressed. Like, how old are you? 25, 24?
24, yeah.
24, man. You have a lot of knowledge, like when it comes to finance. And obviously you've been like, working through this since you were like 10 years old or whatever. That's crazy, man. I think it's impressive. For the audience out there, if they want to find you, if they want to ask you a question, is there a way they can contact you?
Yeah. Just on Instagram is probably best.
What's your Instagram handle?
Just Tom Kliese. So TomKliese.
Perfect.
Simple. Yeah.
We'll plug you in the bottom of it. And I guess we're just going to wrap it up.
Sweet.
So thank you everyone for listening. Hope you guys got a lot out of it. I definitely did. I even learned a lot, which was quite interesting, especially about meditation. Meditation, guys, and Bitcoin. Anyway, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and follow the podcast and go from there. Peace.
Thanks for having me, man.